Hello guys, and welcome to a new Steel Division video today by me, Vulcan. Today I have for you Ku2521 versus Gallo in the second round of the second Asia Pacific tournament. We haven't seen either of these players so far in this tournament, and that's because both of them received round 1 buys. So Ku2521 is actually the reigning champion of the Asia Pacific tournament. He won the last one, so he received a round 1 buy. And Gallo, his opponent did not turn up in round 1, so he automatically got moved on to round 2. And basically what we're playing for here is the moving on to round 3. So whoever wins this will move on. The loser will drop down to the lower bracket. But either way, both of these players are very, very good. Ku obviously proven himself by winning the previous tournament, and Gallo has been doing very well in the Great Paradox tourney. So we're in for a very good match. Let's have a look at what people are playing though. We have Ku2521 on the 1st Panzer and Gallo on the 12th SS Panzer. And then we have Mont Ormel as our map today, which is one that I don't feel like many people actually like too much due to the different elevations. But personally, I think it looks very cool. And I think that the elevations obviously provide a different tactical aspect to the game. I think it's just the thing that gets annoying is that the sort of range or line of sight indicator does not cater for the difference in elevation. So for example here, I'm pretty sure that you can see like over these trees and stuff with like an AT gun up here, and that tree is not actually blocking your line of sight. But the line of sight indicator doesn't indicate that. So you kind of have to work around that in different ways. Anyway, let's have a look at some of the units going down. In this top side from Ku2521, we have the Stuart Command, we have the infantry here. We also have the AT gun. Further down we got a couple units of infantry. Further down we have the Command Infantry combo again, or Command Tank combo, sorry, with the AT gun and infantry. So this looks like a sort of a staple start that Ku likes to do, where he wants to put on pressure in the early game, and a couple of infantry squads going down to the bottom here. So these infantry squads in between the larger packs of units will just hold forwards the front line, whilst the Stuarts, AT guns and the infantry accompanying those will try and probably punch through early on. So that looks like the strategy that Ku is going for. On the side of Gallo, we see the SBW222, we have the AT gun up there and a command infantry. Further down a 259 and a half track with the Panzergrenz. Half track with Spear Troop. Even further down in the center of the map, we have Spear Troop, Panzergrenz and command infantry. And on the very bottom side, Spear Troop, AT, command and some Panzergrenz. So pretty standard stuff out of Gallo. No Boy to Firefly or Boy to Cromwell though coming out at the start of the game, which is definitely something to note. Generally we'll see the 12th SS players bringing at least the Boy to Cromwell at the start of the game because it is such a powerful unit. But in this case it seems as though Gallo is quite happy to work without it and is more likely to rely on these 259s at the start of the game to give him that extra punch where he needs it. Now those 259s can actually penetrate a Stuart at close range, but the engagement there will fall in favour of Ku at longer ranges, so we've got to keep an eye out for that. But so far it's been a pretty long deployment. Just as I say that, we're off, and troops are on their way. So let's have a look at where Ku's going with his units in the centre here. He's got unload at position commands for a lot of his infantry, just going to try and move up and contest the 50-50. On the bottom side, just that single unit rolling up on its own, taking a very odd unit through these houses, honestly. You'd expect it to just come down this road and zoom up there, but wants to take the scenic route through the houses, and that's fair enough. Up on the top side, we have same old stuff, just unloading infantry where he can, not getting too aggressive, not going too close to the front line. And that's definitely something that I like to see. You can see that Gallo positioning is a lot more aggressive. He's trying to unload like right on the 50-50, whereas Ku2521 has actually unloaded just back from the 50-50. And the thing to note is that you don't have to have your infantry on the 50-50 to like push the front line forwards. Each unit has like a pushing radius, I guess, in which it affects the front line. So you can see here, it's sort of bending like it is from the Strelzy, even though they're not right on top of the front line there. But a +1 has been found for Gallo early on. I was thinking that this would be the case just due to the amount of pressure he put onto the 50-50 early on. But Ku currently is running up to his buildings here. He's got these guys on attack moves, but he's put them on to return fire straight after. So they follow the terrain but don't fire and give away their position. So he's actually got himself a pretty good spot on this top side. He's probably just deciding what he wants to do in the mid with some of these Stuarts. Because the main thing that Ku needs to do right here is identify what units he's up against and then sort of play around that. Same goes for Gallo. He's got to try and find out what he's up against and then he can react accordingly. Because currently, no engagements have occurred since Ku has kept all his rifles on return fire, and basically there hasn't been a single engagement across the map yet. So Gallo can only see a half track here. He knows some infantry's in this forest area, and for Ku, well, he can see some Panzergrens here that he's not firing at, and he's also got the 251 at the bottom side, revealing that there's some speed troop down here. And that's pretty much all that that's telling each other on either side of the map. So both players being very cautious at the start of this, and it seems as though Ku is keeping a lot of his sort of half tracks and transport vehicles hidden, and also the Stuart is behind cover as well there. So just Gallo knows nothing about the composition of Ku's forces at the moment, and this is a very slow start for a game that I thought would be pretty damn explosive considering the sort of experience of both players. But both players just playing it very carefully, very cautiously, and currently the lead falling in favour of Gallo with the 53% territory lead. So AT gun is rolling down to this bottom side, most likely to just pick off the 251 down here. Then we have some reinforcing Panzergrens on the way. Panzergrens also coming into the top side. Panzergrens here are trying to move forwards, finding themselves moving towards these rifles, but Ku just falling back, not giving away his position. He doesn't want to engage Panzergrens from that range due to the MG42s completely wrecking the rifles would that happen. So 9HE versus the 4HE here definitely falls in favour of Panzergrens. So he's going to wait until they get into range to engage at 100 meter range, where he has a better chance of taking on the Panzergrens, which is very smart from Ku. It's going to allow those Panzergrens to fall into the trap and then hopefully kill them off afterwards. On the bottom side, recon is arriving. AT gun has also arrived. And Ku can still see this 251, so definitely going to be trying to go for that, I feel. AT gun going to be opening up onto the M5 half track and finding the kill there. So a quick kill from Gallo. These rifles opening up onto that Pak 38. Ku knows he can do some damage there, so going to be using that. Rifles trying to get across the open. 222. Going to be trying to find the 20mm autocannon on target, but currently the attack move's kind of trolling the 222 there, and he is not finding line of sight. 259 has come down to the bottom side here, wants to find shots onto this Strelzy. Will do so, but Ku just going to be getting those out of line of sight, baiting the half track and the 259 closer, so that this 6-pounder can open up, and also the 50-meter grenades can do some work, but that micro there might allow these Strelzy to actually do a lot of damage to this Pak 38. So currently, Ku playing this very carefully, but slowly but surely is whittling down this Pak 38. You can see that he's got it down to 1 health now. I think one more jump into that building will find him the kill. He'll probably go for that now. Being very, very careful with this. Love to see this sort of micro that's going on here. Half track getting very close to the building. Looks like Gallo fed up with these rifles And this is going to be moving the half-track right in there, but is in range of the grenades. And also in range of the 6-pounder. And that's one half-track dealt with. Hurricane going to be coming down. Pins down the Panzergrenadiers in the open very easily indeed. It's going to be harassed by the 20mm autocannons. But Ku's just going to be getting that out of there. Has that on station now in the future for if he wants to pin down any Panzergrenadiers that are getting in his way. These rifles did manage to get quite far up due to being out of line of sight of the 222 for quite a while. But the +1 still falling in favour of Gal O'Neill currently. So Ku has work to do in this game. One thing I'm a little bit worried about is Gal getting too aggressive and too impatient. Because he keeps trying to push forwards with Panzergrenadiers when he doesn't necessarily have to. And that has the potential to really leave himself vulnerable to a counter push. Now 2 Cromwell 6s have arrived on the field. We can see the Cromwell 6 on the top side, helping out kill the half-track up there. The Pak 38 of Gal O'Neill is going to be forced to fall back. I think that's a fire position there from the Cromwell 6 though. Knows that there's something up. This Cromwell 6 is currently killing the Pak 38 on the bottom side, opening up the map down here. So rifles versus Panzergrenadiers at 100-meter range. Honestly, the power there is relatively the same. I think both squads have 5 HE at that range. So they're going to be holding each other up for a very long time. Command Infantry is going to move up and join the engagement. Panzergrenadier with their 7 HE would definitely swing that in favour of the Panzergrenadiers. But we do see now the Hurricane arriving. That's going to pin down those Panzergrenadiers, no problemo. And that puts Gal O'Neill in a pretty sticky situation there. He's going to have to hope that these Panzergrenadier can deal with things on their own. Because he doesn't actually want to lose these Panzergrenadiers if he can help it, because that would lose the veterancy for a lot of his units surrounding. He does have another squad further down here, but this is not exactly how you want to use Panzergrenadier if you can help it. I believe he just wants to kill off these rifles if he can. So now the Hurricane coming in again. Going to be chipping away at the Panzergrenadier. Panzergrenadier surviving that a lot better due to their 2-star veterancy. Don't take so much of a morale penalty. Oh, nice kill there from Gal O'Neill. Looks like Ku tried to sneak out there with the Stuart in order to just pin down and kill off these Panzergrenadiers, but didn't realise that it was actually in range. And the Panzergrenadiers found the kill there. Also managed to get a bit of damage onto that 6-pounder. So now we're seeing the mortars and the artillery arriving. We've got the 257 on the bottom side and the very top side for Gal O'Neill. And then a Sexton has arrived on the field for Ku2521. So both players trying to make ground here. Currently Gal O'Neill doing a very good job of removing that Stuart in the mid here. Gives a lot of space for his Panzergrenadier. But, or for the Panzergrenadier, sorry. But his Panzergrenadier did die to the Hurricane. Which is a pretty nice kill actually for Ku2521. Getting rid of any command squads that the 12th SS have is pretty good because they don't have that many of them. So mortar fire now coming down onto the 6-pounder on this top side. 257 providing a lot of issues for Ku2521 up here. It seems as though this Sexton is currently trying to RT the 222 as well, not going for the counter battery. I think what he wants to do is dislodge this 222 from behind the building and give it line of sight for the 6-pounder and the Stuart 5 there. So Panzergrenadiers now moving on to these rifles. Rifles in a very good spot though, and the Hurricane's back in for more. Pins down, forces the surrender of those Panzergrenadiers. Ku2521's been using these Hurricanes very effectively to sort of just pin down and kill off units that are annoying him. And meanwhile just keeping his own rifles and infantry on return fire for the most part. Very interesting style of play for sure. And not something that we've seen very often previously. He's quite happy to give up the +1 early on. Gal O'Neill is currently on 560 points. And I'm assuming he's just going to slowly chip away at Gal O'Neill's frontline forces and find a lead somewhere, because that's what he needs to do in order to stay relevant in this game. Ku obviously can't afford to be at a +1 disadvantage for the entire game, otherwise he just straight up loses. But at the moment, Dragoni coming in here, they're going to kill off 2 squads of Panzergrenadiers. That's going to leave the 223 and the 251 vulnerable. Slowly but surely taking back ground. Here we are with the engagement of the rifles and the Panzergrenadiers on this bottom side. 257 is going to be there to sort of support that engagement, although it looks like that the 257 is more concerned of killing off this 6-pounder, which is currently being revealed by the speed troop, I believe. But Gallienil has to be very careful here. This is a lot of ground that he's going to lose if these Panzergrenadiers die out and get surrendered. Now it looks like the Cromwell's just going to finish them off. And that is opening up a lot of space on the bottom side for Ku2521. So ideally what I would like to see here is the Boys Firefly saved up for. And come in and kill off these Cromwell 6s, because they are going to continuously be an annoyance throughout the rest of the game if he doesn't get rid of them early on. Like, killing off these Cromwell 6s is very important when you go up against the 1st Panzerner. And the Firefly is pretty much the only thing that he has that can deal with them at the same range that they're firing. And the other thing that I wanted to mention again is the fact that Gallienil has been very aggressive with his Panzergrenadiers, continuously trying to make ground. And you can see just so far it's just constantly backfired. Like up on this top side, he's lost a couple units of Panzergrenadiers to these rifles, and on the bottom side, same deal. I believe he moved his Panzergrenadiers forwards and they ended up dying because of it. Cromwell 6 there taking out another half track, and that's going to open up even more ground for Ku2521. Ku is bringing up a universal carrier here with a 6-pounder. That is hopefully going to help him take on the 251 and the 223. The Hurricanes have arrived once again to pin down the Panzergrenadiers in that engagement. Universal carrier going to be able to open up onto the speed troop down here. And that was actually Ku2521 using the universal carrier to just quickly move the 6-pounder forwards. And that is very, very well played indeed. So 2 Bofors already on the field here, which is going to force Gallienil's ME109 G6R6 to fall back. Mustang Mark III might be able to catch that as well and shoot it down. Never mind. Gallienil has AA of his own, and that is going to save the day. Panzer IV-H has found its way into range of the Cromwell 6, and that could be a very dead Cromwell 6 on this bottom side if the Panzer IV finds a shot on target. Has probably another couple shots. Maybe just one more, never mind. Ku2521 using the line of sight there to get his Cromwell 6 out of trouble. Very, very well played. Panzergrenadier running forwards here. Going to be trying to take care of the 6-pounder. As that 6-pounder has killed off the majority of the mechanized forces in the middle here. Both of the half-tracks going down, including one of the half-tracks there. One of the AA half-tracks with the 20 mils on the back. So that's opening up the sky a little bit as well. Verbelwind has been brought in though, just to help out against these Hurricanes and the air support that Ku2521 has been relying on so far in this game. Panzer IV-H though, definitely providing a lot of presence on the bottom side, but that's not stopping Ku from running forwards with more rifles and just taking more and more ground. Still at a 50-50. Gallienil still has the lead. 641 points in Gallienil's favour. And with the death of that AT gun, that actually opens up a lot of play for this Panzer IV-H. But those Panzergrenadiers not going to be lasting too long under the fire of the Hurricane Mark IV. Hurricane Mark IV with rockets there coming in to harass the one of the half tracks. Is interesting. I'm surprised that ME109 though stopped firing at the Hurricane Mark IV. That is very unfortunate for Gallienil. Gallienil, I feel like, could have shot down at least one of the Hurricane Mark IVs there. The second one doing the job though and shooting down the ME109. So now the air war completely falling in favour of Ku. Galileo is going to have to really rely on his AA to keep this under control. Wolverine has moved into range of this Panzer IV. That Panzer IV needs to get out of there. Going to be put on a reverse order. That M10 has probably one more shot on target unless the line of sight is broken. It will be. Okay. So Panzer IV-H, safe for now. However, can be used in conjunction with these Panzer Grenadiers to make a lot of ground through these rifles. There is a Dragoni mixed in there, which does have the Piat. Piat isn't the most reliable infantry though. But what I just love to see is Ku's use of the return fire to stop his infantry revealing themselves and maintain the presence on the front line. Been very, very impactful through the game so far. Now he has found himself a +1 as well, especially with the contesting of territory on this top side. 2 units of Strelzy here with the 3 health apiece. Going to be trying to hold the ground. 222 will likely clean up 1 squad at least. This squad will be a lot harder to deal with, especially if Ku micros it properly. But it's not a substantial lead here from Gallo-Neal. If Ku2521 finds a +1 for the rest of the game, he will end up winning, I believe. So this is still on a knife edge here, and currently this Panzer IV is being pinned by the Cromwell 6, and that's going to leave Gallo-Neal without anything to challenge this Wolverine, because this Wolverine honestly could end up being taken out by the Panzer IV-H if Gallo-Neal manages to get that into line of sight at a closer range. The weapon jam there for that half track going to be hit pretty hard. Rifles did end up dying on this top side, and that's going to bring things back to 50-50. Now as long as things stay at 50-50, Gallo-Neal is happy, and I would hope to see Gallo-Neal actually go on the defensive at this point and stop being so aggressive with his Panzergrens, because I think that's mainly what has caused him to lose out throughout this game so far. Just like the over-aggression when it wasn't necessarily needed. Mustang 3 there going to help pin down the Panzer IV. With the track wheel destroyed, that's going to give the Wolverine plenty of time on target. And that's a dead Panzer IV. Smoke not saving the day this time around. Gallo-Neal definitely was on point there. Very, very quick with the smoke reaction, but not quick enough to stop the Wolverine from getting the kill. And here we even see some recon getting killed off by the Cromwell as they try to move forwards. So yeah, Gallo-Neal's in a pretty sticky situation. He can't really use heavy tanks effectively because it's Mont Ormel. He could possibly bring one down to this bottom side and get the kills onto the Wolverine and the Cromwell 6. But what he needs to do first is basically solidify his position with his own infantry, because there isn't as much infantry on the ground for Gallo-Neal as there is for Ku at the moment, and that could turn into a big problem. Spear troop there, getting hammered by the double Hurricane. And one ME-109 G6R6 I don't feel is going to be enough to help out kill any of those aircraft, just quite simply due to this Bofors on the top side and the Bofors on the bottom side. Both of these anti-aircraft pieces have been doing a lot of work, keeping the ME-109s at bay. But Whitman has been brought in, is going to find his way to the bottom side, and will now be engaging the Wolverine. He needs to find a kill. First shot misses, and the crew knocked out. Wow. That is a pretty damn lucky shot there from the Wolverine. Allows it to just back out of range, and I don't think this Tiger's going to be finding any kills anytime soon. That's a real shame. Gallo-Neal even smoking that off just to keep it safe. Rifles are moving up to this bottom side, trying to take ground in this tree line. Panzergrens are arriving though to help out. In the middle of the map, it's going to be Superzi, and what looks like some Dragoni moving in and unloading. They're going to be trying to take some ground in the center to find Ku the +1. But currently 18 minutes and 40 seconds left on the map. Can Gallo hold on for that long? He's got 641 points currently. It's really, really reliant on Whitman, whether or not Whitman can find kills onto these units. Because if he can, then that could open up the bottom side quite heavily for Gallo. But I think Gal is very, very cautious playing around the infantry that's taking ground down here, because he doesn't know if it's rifles or if it's Dragoni, because these rifles have pretty much been on return fire for the majority of the game, so he doesn't know what they are until he bumps into them with his Panzergrens, which is likely to happen shortly, and is happening now. Whitman plus the 222 and the Verbal Wind are going to be pinning those down and making them surrender almost immediately. Ku losing his foothold on that bottom side. So from Gallo-Neal's perspective, there isn't much he can see on this bottom side, which is why he has to be so careful with Whitman. There's no recon down here. You can see him bringing up a recon vehicle. But just in general, he's in a pretty bad spot because he just doesn't have any information about what he's going up against. On the side of Ku, however, he has a good idea of like where the units are spaced out. He's been keeping an eye on Whitman for a very long time now. And I'm surprised Whitman there didn't find a kill once again onto the Cromwell 6. The Panzer Grenadiers becoming a problem. Here comes the Hurricane train. Going to be pinning down those Panzergrens no problemo. Didn't actually manage to get the full pin. Instead turning to fight the ME-109 G6R6. That's probably a very good idea because it allows the Hurricanes to get out of there unscathed. This Hurricane taking a lot of damage. Still managing to get out alive. And those Panzergrens are going to be surrendered. And that is a big deal actually. Another unit of Panzergrens dead on this top side. These Panzer Grenadiers, they've moved up. They've found themselves into a very bad position. The Aufkläder here also being pinned down now as the Dragoni move up. And Gallo is very close to losing this top side. Dragoni do have the Piat to take care of the 222. Can they get a shot on target though? They can, and that is very important for Ku indeed, as that will push the +1 for Ku2521. He's going to be finding victory in 16 minutes. So, it's really up to Gallo to make some ground on this bottom side. He did manage to get rid of the infantry and the recon in these buildings, which is very important for him. But now it's up to this SPW231 to reveal the units that he wants to kill. So Whitman here really wants to get onto the Wolverine and the Cromwell. And again, if he can, then he can bring back the territory on this bottom side. He's already brought it back to 50-50 due to his moves on this bottom side. But on the top side, Ku is definitely getting entrenched up here. Getting those Dragoni into these buildings is very important. And he's also got into this forest area, which is very nice indeed for Ku. Still a long way to go in this match though. No significant plays coming through. There hasn't been a significant advantage, is what I mean, for either player throughout this game so far. Like Gal did manage to sit on the +1 for a very long time, but it never felt like Ku was out of control of the game. He was just playing much more cautiously, and it seems to have started to pay off. I think Ku2521's scoreline is going to be a lot more like positive. He's going to have a much higher KDA because he's been conserving his infantry very, very well throughout the game. There's Charlesy there, finding the surrender onto another Panzergren unit as well. And the more Panzergrens that go down like that, the less availability that Gallo is going to have to keep the front line forwards. And we even see the Hurricane there coming in to rocket Whitman. And that's in advance of this Firefly 5C coming in to engage there. But that Firefly 5C has bigger targets than Whitman, really. That Firefly could take out the 231, the 222, the Verbal Wind, and the mortar carrier there if it finds line of sight on any of them. And that will remove all of the support that Whitman needs. Because without support, Whitman is not going to do very well on his own. He needs the recon information from the 231. He needs the anti-air support from the Verbal Wind. Because otherwise he's just going to constantly have Whitman pinned down. And he's going to be in a really bad spot. Because at the moment, we can see that the Mustangs and Hurricanes are just flying free around this map. There are the 251-17s with the 20 mils on the back, hanging about on this top side. But they have limited range and limited ammunition, and that is showing so far. Whitman here being very aggressive, pushing up very hard towards this Firefly, wants to get into line of sight of that. Verbal Wind going to be able to open up onto the Dragoni in the open. Might be able to help take care of those. 257 also coming down with the mortar support. So Ku, at the moment, just needs to be careful around this bottom side. And he can maintain the +1 that he's currently on. But as you can see, it's got to the point where Ku2521 is not going to win with just a +1. 12 minutes and 35 seconds remaining. Gal O'Neill, most definitely in the lead at this moment, is going to take a +2 at least now from Ku2521 to win the game. So has Gal O'Neill done enough? Who knows? The thing is, you don't want it to be a draw. Ku2521 definitely wants to find a victory. So the +2 is not, or the +1 is not really going to be enough. As for Gal O'Neill, he wants to solidify his victory. And it's all coming down to Whitman on this bottom side by the looks of things. Currently though, the Firefly getting into a very interesting position in the middle of the map. Might be trying to go for a two-prong attack onto Whitman. Like if Whitman gets rocketed here and forced to fall back, it looks like he may find himself in line of sight of this M10 very shortly. And that would be absolutely devastating. Oh, the Wolverine did take out the 231 as well. That is a big hit. Wolverine now going for the shot onto Whitman. Firefly not quite in line of sight, but has got line of sight onto these Panzergrenadiers. So going to be hitting those. And I feel like these Panzergrenadiers are just unnecessarily forwards. Like they don't need to be this far forwards. Obviously Gal O'Neill is wanting to find ground in order to solidify his victory, but currently things are really falling away from him and needs to play very carefully around this. The mortar carrier going down here on the bottom side. Panzergrenadiers will soon be dead. On this top side, Kretschmar just goes down. There is a 17 pounder that's brought itself all the way up, and these Panzergrenadiers are just being ran over by the infantry in the half tracks in the open. Cromwell 6 has just done so much work throughout this game. You can see that it's used up almost all of its ammunition. That is 51 shells or 13 HE ammunition. Verbal Wind going down here, and like I mentioned before, Whitman's not going to do much without support. Even in the centre of the map here, the Firefly's moved up and taken out the Verbal Wind. Firefly is going to be able to aim onto the Panzer IV sooner as well and get the kill. That is massive. Things are really falling away from Gal O'Neill here. Ku2521 has found the +2. Things have really turned up a notch in this game. Things gone from 0 to 100 very, very quickly. Currently Whitman experiencing an internal fire. Currently going up against the Firefly there, and the Firefly scores the kill. Whitman down. And I kind of feel like after all of the pressure that Gal O'Neill had in the early game, it just fell apart after his unnecessary aggression with the Panzergrenadiers, and now all of the units that were safely behind his front line are being picked off slowly but surely. 259 there going down to the Hurricane Mark IV. We see the AA being slowly picked off by the Firefly that's broken all the way through. Ku2521 has also managed to get 6 pounders and 17 pounders up to the front line. And that's going to it just makes things so difficult for Gal O'Neill to use any form of armor. because Ku has found places to put these AT guns. And currently, the artillery that Gallo was relying on is dead. So he can't even mortar those AT guns to death. And the wall of the 1st Panzerner is certainly encroaching upon the lands of Gallo and his 12th SS Panzer. It's falling apart. Only the 251-17's really standing in the way across the board. I'm not quite sure that 2 units of Panzergrenadiers is going to be enough to recover this game. Gallo held the lead for so long with his 641 points, but it was not enough. Ku2521 counting up to victory now with the +2 lead. Very, very well played here from Ku2521. I was worried that Ku2521 was being too conservative in the early game and allowing Gallo too much of a lead, but he's played this very well in that he didn't let it get that bad. And I think just what he focused on in the early game was scoring the kills that he needed, whittling down the availability of the Panzergrens for Gallo. And yeah, it paid off in the end. Like every time a rifle squad was taking out a Panzergren squad, that literally was, you know, for example, I'll just show you guys. A Strelzy squad costs 15 points. A Panzergren squad costs 35 points. So the Panzergren squad costs over double a rifle squad, and when he was using those rifle squads with return fire to just sort of bait in the Panzergrens and then kill them off, it was very, very impressive, and just fantastic job there by Ku to get those engagements in. Ku's kill death is just going to be absolutely insane. 2 more Panzer IVs going down on this top side to the 17-pounder here. And a +3 even in favour of Ku2521. There's no AA to stop this air engagement either. So the ME109 going to go down as well. 65% territory lead. And just a very well played display from Ku2521. Gallo played very well in the early game. But like I said, it all comes down to the over-aggression. And trying to take ground when he didn't necessarily need it. He was quite happy on the +1, I felt. But after 33 minutes and 26 seconds, Gallo is going to give over the game to Ku2521, and there you have it. 3,345 kills to 695 losses. It looked a lot worse in the early game than it actually was for Ku2521. He was finding those Panzergren kills across the board, and it really helped him out in the later game when he could just push through with his overwhelming armor presence, because Gallo had to keep replacing his infantry, didn't have the points for the more expensive units. That's why we probably didn't see a Boy to Firefly come out, because Gallo needed to reinforce his infantry. And yeah, it basically put Gallo in a very tough spot in the late game, and these Cromwell 6s definitely did a lot of work. They used up so much ammunition. And this Wolverine as well, picking off plenty of units on the bottom side. Very, very nice indeed. And the Firefly coming in very strong. Getting the Verbelwind, getting that Panzer IV-H at close range. We also saw the Whitman go down to the Firefly after the internal fire. And yeah, absolutely crazy stuff. Very, very nice game. Interesting to see Ku2521's strategy of the return fire on those rifles. Seemed to work out very well. Baited Gallo into engagements he didn't necessarily want, and that's exactly what you got to do in order to win the game. So there you go. That's it. Hopefully you guys have enjoyed it. Ku2521 will be moving on to the 3rd round, and Gallo dropping down to the lower bracket. But that's all for now. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Goodbye.